fans? Welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. As I continue my kind of marathon of more extreme horror or more extreme films, but I'm waiting on some special orders to come in, so I figured I'll just continue this series since I've already reviewed the original, and that is the always notorious Faces of Death. And this is the DVD collection from Gorgon Video. So yeah, I've done the first film, one of the most notorious video nasties, which came out in 1978. So let's just go to the first sequel, which came out in 1981, and that, of course, is Faces of Death Part 2. So this is the first of 5 official sequels. Faces of Death went up to Part 4 of original material. 5 and 6 were highlights. 7 was a completely unrelated film, and then 8 was also even more unrelated, and I think only released in Germany. But this is pretty much the same creative team. John Alan Schwartz returns as writer and director, again credited as Alan Black for director and Conan LeClaire as writer. Actor Michael Carr returns as Dr. Francis B. Gross. And this one pretty much is the same as the first one. Has that documentary style. Each segment is like a different kind of death or like a different aspect of death. Only a vast difference is that while believed to be mostly true and authentic, the original film, it is now known that it's kind of a 60-40 ratio. This one is even more so real. There's more real stuff. In fact, the only thing I can really think of that is definitely faked would be the PCP guy, a guy high on PCP, a shootout with the cops. And that's very obvious, has some terrible acting. I know there's something about the firing squad at the very end of the film. I know the director of parts 4 on, Dr. Louis Flellis, he said something about the firing squad. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, this movie is mostly very authentic. I do know that shootout was fake. Where the first film had the creepy opening credits with that dark ambient music, with that awesome Faces of Death font, put over open heart surgery and morgues. This one is various EMT calls and scenes, which really sets the tone for the film, and even the opening monologue with Dr. Gross. Because the previous film ended on the note about life after death, and he's hopeful, and it ended with a child being born, fabricated, with pleasant music. This is a complete shift. This has a much darker, more serious tone. Definitely a more humans are bad kind of tone. He even opens it up with saying how after my first study, my hope for life after death has completely diminished. And yeah, this is more, I mean, there are a lot of accidents and stuff, but this is mostly just how shitty it is to be a human. But even the way it's presented, I mean, it still does work as a sort of shockumentary or faux documentary. I mean, the way it's shot or the way it's spliced together, the look of the film, the voiceover narration. Though I'll say the writing for the narration might not be as eloquent as the first film. I do feel like there's more padding in this film. Also, the different topics and segments don't quite flow together as well. There aren't as seamless segues from one topic to another. we go right from funerals to kind of disasters, like a building on fire, to an avalanche, to extreme sports like boxing. It's not as seamless and transitional as the first film. It's also a lot shorter. The original was an hour 45 minutes. This one's an hour 18, I think. So it's almost a half hour shorter, but it feels just as long. Uh, it does have. It does continue to have some animal stuff, though. It like the first one, it doesn't feel as exploitative as, say, Cannibal Holocaust, where they're just killing an animal on screen for the sake of making a movie, like it's part of the story. This is more of just what happens in the world, like just a more kind of educational, just look at what happens. Like, uh, it does show animal testing, which the scene where the monkey gets the wooden thing in his mouth to hold his mouth open with the tube down his throat. I remember seeing that clip on Snuff 102. But yeah, how monkeys are tested on, and specifically how they're given drugs to test the withdrawal symptoms. But also there's I think the thing with the lamb being skinned before it's 3 days old to make hats, and then showing people wearing the hats. Though I think the lamb was already dead. I could have sworn that was in the first film, but more emphasis on people wearing it in this one. Whaling and whale and dolphin hunting, which does happen. But again, it feels more like archive footage or more of like a twisted, dark National Geographic. It doesn't feel as exploitative as like a cannibal movie. It's also it's less graphic, sure, as far as seeing them die and seeing bad things happen to them. Like the first one, like how bloody the slaughterhouse scenes are in the first one. But yeah, there is a shot uh, with the dolphins dead. It zooms in on like a dolphin baby or fetus or something. Kind of gross. Quick clip of clubbing of baby seals, which I think was in the first movie. But here, it has some stuff that if it was in the first film, it would have been staged. But here, for the most part, again, it is authentic. Like, we have the final fight of boxer Johnny Owen, where he was, like, in round 12 of 15, he was knocked out, dropped, and then fell into a coma, and then died. We get almost the entirety of that fight. We get this one stuntman who was going to try to jump this big channel. I want to say some of that was staged. Like the first one, it seems like the stuff around it might have had actors, but then the actual event is authentic. The only thing I know for a fact was that shootout, which could either be a testament to how well they staged stuff as opposed to the first one, or just the amount of real stuff they actually used, which I do know they used more. But I also did notice something. We don't actually a lot of times get the moment of death. It's a lot of aftermath and dead bodies, which this one does push the limits of the first one in some areas. Like, it does show a lot of the nuclear bomb testing, like the famous one at Yucca Flats, how a bunch of the soldiers got leukemia 20 years later. But it shows the effects of napalm with a lot of stuff we've seen in a lot of war history documentaries, like with the kids walking down the streets and they're all injured. It does have this segment of one dead kid after another, young kids being brought in, laid on table, wrapped up, put in a casket, brought in, wrapped up, put in a casket. Shows several dead kids from napalm and bombing and radiation. It's kind of hard to forget or kind of hard to remember all the specific segments, only because it's not as well put together as the first one. The first one, like I said, had more seamless segues, and each segment flowed together, like as being related to the previous one, so it flowed better. This one was just more or less random. Also, it seemed like segments would just end, like it would just fade to black, where it felt like more was gonna happen. Uh, yeah, the building's on fire, shows people jumping out of windows at 35 stories. Uh, the wreckage of this huge highway avalanche in 1975, where it shows people being dug out of cars, buried in the snow. Uh, there's another plane crash. Car crash of a guy driving around on PCP. I think that PCP one was real, but the shootout was definitely fake. The one guy that was on PCP, he was a terrible actor, but the woman describing what happened at the public place, she was one of the worst actresses I could think of. She was really bad. But again, his face is a death. I'm not going to dock points for acting. And also, all the animal stuff is just kind of spliced throughout it. Like, we'll have animal testing, a couple things, then we'll have something about fur, and then the whales and dolphins, and then more stuff. Yeah, and then there's like, it actually opens up with different forms of funerals. Like, in one country, they do like public burnings because they think it'll free the soul. Whereas here, it talks about the prices of caskets. We see one tribe where a woman got an axe to the head, but she lived, and how it's okay because violence is respected or something over there. A woman who has like had a fracture some years ago, so like her forearm bone sticks out like this, but the skin's still over it, so it looks like her arm's like jagged. And it ends with the firing squad. Which also, this, I don't know if this is real, but there's a guy that collects Old West artifacts, and he supposedly has like a pickled head of a bandit. It does show the inside of a criminology museum. So it does have a variety of things like the first one. It does have less animal stuff than the first one. It is more different things happening to different people. You know, like once you get past the animal opening of the first one, what the rest of the film is. But overall, it does have a much darker, more serious tone. And for that matter, I would say it does feel more like a documentary. But yeah, the voiceover isn't as eloquent. It doesn't feel as well written. Segments will just end or just randomly pick up. Also, yeah, just segues in the way some lead into others without even being closely being related. It feels rushed, I guess. And I mean, it came out 3 years after the original, but it does kind of have that sense of, hey, that was a big success. Let's do another one. I don't think it's as capitalizing as some people make it out to be. A lot of people make it out to be, you know, like a Halloween sequel, where one's a huge success. Halloween 4 was a huge success, so less than a year later, Halloween 5 comes out. It wasn't like that, I don't think. Some motorcycle accidents. It does have a bunch of other things that the first one didn't get to, but it's just a lesser version of it. It's a lesser version of it, but it does have more real stuff in it. Kind of a mixed bag. I mean, if you want more real, then yeah, part 2 is more the way to go. But if you want just a well-crafted documentary, shockumentary, mondo film, whatever you want to call it, the first one's definitely the best. It it flows better. Even the fake segments are still well done. I thought this one had the segment with the car where the brake rotor fell on the guy's leg, pinning it to the ground, but I think that's in 3. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about 2. It is more or less the same movie, just not as well put together. And with more real stuff. But yeah, that's Faces of Death 2. Depending on when other stuff comes in, I'm hoping 2 will be in tomorrow. If not, I'll jump right into 3 and 4. And I also still have 4 Mondo Cane films to get to whenever that happens. But I still have a number of extreme films to get to, so stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.